else tell its owner's fate. New land for the old thou shalt seek and find, but to find new life thou must not await. Strange that men should sit in the stead of shame, when Allah's world is so wide and great, and trust none other in matters grave. Life itself must act for a life beset. Never would prowl the lion with maned neck, did he reckon on aid or of others' wreck. Hardly believing in my escape, I kissed his hand and thought the loss of my eye a light matter in consideration of my escaping from being slain. I arrived at my uncle's capital, and going into him told him of what had befallen my father and myself, whereat he wept with sore weeping and said, Verily thou addest grief to my grief, and woe to my woe, for thy cousin hath been missing these many days. I wot not what hath happened to him, and none can give me news of him. And he wept till he fainted. I sorrowed and condoled with him, and he would have applied certain medications to my eye, but he saw that it was become as a walnut with the shell empty. Then said he, O my son, better to lose eye and keep life. After that I could no longer remain silent about my cousin, who was his only son, and one dearly loved. So I told him all that had happened. He rejoiced with extreme joyance to hear news of his son, and said, Come now, and show me the tomb. But I replied, By Allah, O my uncle, I know not its place. Though I sought it carefully full many times, yet could not find the site. However, I and my uncle went to the graveyard, and looked right and left, till at last I recognized the tomb, and we both rejoiced with exceeding joy. We entered the tomb and loosened the earth about the grave. Then upraising the trapdoor, descended some 50 steps till we came to the foot of the staircase, when lo, we were stopped by a blinding smoke. Thereupon said my uncle, that saying whose sayer shall never come to shame, there is no majesty and there is no might, save in Allah the glorious, the great. And we advanced till we suddenly came upon a saloon, whose floor was strewed with flour and grain and provisions and all manner necessaries. And in the midst of it stood a canopy sheltering a couch. Thereupon my uncle went up to the couch, and inspecting it found his son and the lady who had gone down with him into the tomb lying in each other's embrace. But the twain had become black as charred wood. It was as if they had been cast into a pit of fire. When my uncle saw this spectacle, he spat in his son's face and said, Thou hast thy deserts, O thou hog. This is thy judgment in the transitory world, and yet remaineth the judgment in the world to come, endurer and a more enduring. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased saying or permitted say, when it was the 12th night, she continued, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the Kalandar thus went on with this story before the lady and the caliph and the prince. My uncle struck his son with his slipper as he lay there, a black heap of coal. I marveled at his hardness of heart, and grieving for my cousin, and the lady said, By Allah, O my uncle, calm thy wrath. Dost thou not see that all my thoughts are occupied with this misfortune, and how sorrowful I am for what hath befallen thy son, and how horrible it is that not of him remaineth but a black heap of charcoal? And is that not enough, but thou must smite him with thy slipper? Answered he, O son of my brother, this youth from his boyhood was madly in love with his own sister, and often I forbade him from her, saying to myself, they are but little ones. However, when they grew up, sin befell between them, and although I could hardly believe it, I confined him, and chided him, and threatened him with the severest threats. And the eunuchs and servants said to him, beware of so foul a thing, which none before thee ever did, and which none after thee will ever do, and have a care lest thou be dishonored and disgraced among the kings of the day, even to the end of time. And I added, such report as this will be spread abroad by caravans, and take heed not to give them cause to talk, or I will assuredly curse thee and do thee to death. After that I lodged them apart and shut her up. But the accursed girl loved him with passionate love, for Satan had got the mastery of her as well as of him, and made their foul sin seem fair in their sight. Now when my son saw that I separated them, he secretly built this place, and furnished it, even as thou seest. And when I had gone out a sporting, came here with his sister, and hid from me. Then his righteous judgment fell upon the twain, and consumed them with fire from heaven. And verily the last judgment will deal them dearer pains and more enduring. Then he wept, and I wept with them, and he looked at me and said, thou art my son in his stead. And I bethought me a while of the world and of its chances, how the wazir had slain my father, and had taken his place, and had put out my eye, and how my cousin had come to his death by the strangest chance, and I wept again, and my uncle wept with me. Then we mounted the steps and let down the iron plate, and heaped up the earth over it, and after restoring the tomb to its former condition, we returned to the palace. But hardly had we sat down, ere we heard the tom-tomming of the kettle drum, and the tantara of trumpets, and clash of cymbals, and the rattling of warmen's lances, and the clamors of assailants, and the clinking of bits, and the neighing of steeds, while the world was canopied with dense dust and sand clouds raised by the horses' hoofs. We were amazed at sight and sound, knowing not what could be the matter. So we asked, and were told us, that the wazir who usurped my father's kingdom had marched his men, and that after levying his soldiery and taking a host of wild Arabs into service, he had come down upon us with armies like the sands of the sea. Their number none could tell, and against them none could prevail. They attacked the city unawares, and the citizens, being powerless to oppose them, surrendered the place. My uncle was slain, and I made for the suburbs, saying to myself, if thou fall into this villain's hands, he will assuredly kill thee. On this wise all my troubles were renewed, and I pondered all that had betided my father and my uncle, and I knew not what to do. For if the city people or my father's troops had recognized me, they would have done their best to win favor by destroying me, and I could think of no way to escape save by shaving off my beard and my eyebrows. So I shore them off, and changing my fine clothes for Kalandar's rags, I fared forth from my uncle's capital, and made for this city, hoping that peradventure someone would assist me to the presence of the Prince of the Faithful, and the Caliph, who is the vice-regent of Allah upon earth. Thus have I come hither that I might tell him my tale, and lay my case before him. I arrived here this very night, and was standing in doubt whether I should go, and suddenly I saw this second Kalandar. So I salaamed to him, saying, I am a stranger, and he answered, I too am a stranger. And as we were conversing, behold, up came our companion, this third Kalandar, and saluted us, saying, I am a stranger. And we answered, we too be strangers. mustachios and eyebrows and the manner